Welcome to richplanet.net, the program which aims to uncover the truth behind the alien and UFO mystery. I'm Richard D. Hall, and this week's program is about alien ancestors. If aliens are visiting Earth at the present time, as many people now believe, then it seems logical that they may have visited Earth in the past. Not only that, some claim that extraterrestrials have played a role in our evolution, and our DNA was hybridized in the past to create Homo sapien. This is a view that deeply religious people and anthropologists find impossible to consider, because it threatens to destroy the foundation upon which their entire belief system is based. Before we look at theories about aliens, I'm going to look at a few things in our past that historians cannot explain, which indicate that advanced, intelligent species, not necessarily alien, inhabited the Earth over 10,000 years ago. Conventional history upholds that we were still in the Stone Age 10,000 years ago. The first piece of evidence is the Piri-Reis map. In 1929, a group of historians found a map drawn on a gazelle skin. Research showed that this was a genuine document drawn in 1513 by Piri-Reis, a famous admiral of the Turkish fleet in the 16th century. Piri-Reis had privileged access to the Imperial Library of Constantinople, and in a series of notes on the map, he states that he copied the map from a large number of source maps, some of which dated back to the 4th century BC or earlier. These source maps no longer exist. The map is extremely accurate and shows the western coast of Africa, the eastern coast of South America, and the northern coast of Antarctica. The map shows the northern Antarctic coastline in perfect detail, 300 years before it was discovered in 1818. Not only that, the coastline is currently underneath 1 mile of ice. It was only in 1949 that seismic surveys were carried out on Antarctica and the first maps of the land underneath were produced. The Piri-Reis map matches the modern maps exactly. The question then arises, when was the Antarctic coastline free of ice? There are some doubts about the exact time, but researchers claim anything between 13,000 and 9,000 BC, which is well into the Stone Age. Before the 1700s, maps were extremely inaccurate because navigators had no way of knowing how far around the Earth, east or west, they had travelled. They knew how far north or south they were by the position of the stars, but the only way of working out how far east or west you have travelled is by having an accurate way of measuring the time. It wasn't until 1735 that the first chronometer was invented, which allowed explorers to produce accurate maps. The Piri-Reis map is drawn to such an accuracy that a chronometer or some other advanced device must have been used to draw it. So this map points to the fact that a very intelligent species was on the Earth probably at least 11,000 years ago, which is completely at odds with the history we learn at school. The next block of evidence, which supports the existence of previously advanced civilizations, comes from ancient monuments, which are found all over the world. The Giza pyramids and Sphinx, the structures in South America, and the stones of Baalbek, to name but a few. You would expect that if human development had been linear, as mankind developed better techniques from, let's say, 5000 BC onwards, this would be reflected in the increasing complexity of the monuments. This, however, is not the case. Monuments which are believed to be the oldest often suggest levels of advanced mathematics and engineering that only the latest technology could replicate. The weight of the stones and the tolerance of manufacture suggests highly advanced civilizations existed during a period when man was supposedly a primitive barbarian. Ancient pre-Inca civilizations in South America built structures containing stones weighing 500 tons, equivalent to 500 family cars. Nobody has come up with a plausible explanation as to how these stones were moved. Legends state that the massive blocks were lifted by hand as if they were cork.
The stones of Baalbek weigh approximately between 800 and other ones still mined are over around 2,000 tonnes. But even an 800-tonne stone, I mean, we've watched many recreations of movement of ancient monuments on televisions with laughter, you know, because I mean, the people who are supposed to have rebuilt the pyramids and moved the stones from Stonehenge, I mean, when you watch the attempt to do it with the technology that they're supposed to have at the time, you know it couldn't possibly be done. The building of the Great Pyramids and the other pyramids that were built at the same time, I mean, they never tell you this. They never tell you that the time they built the Great Pyramid, they were also building the pyramids of the Red Pyramid and the Bent Pyramid. And these were all being lined up. And the size and the construction of the material, the stones at Baalbek, cut from a quarry, moved across uneven ground, right, in at least 5,000 to 6,000 BC, according to our scientists. And we're going to tell you they're much, much, much older than that. In fact, they're even before 10,500 BC. Those blocks of stone were impossible to move by our technology till recently. So how did hairy barbarians using antlers move it? It's a lie. Come on, use your intelligence, use your knowledge, go look at them. Anyone who's actually been and looked at the Great Pyramid itself, the massive scale of it. I mean, somebody told us, it first wrote down there was 2.25 million blocks of stone. And now mathematicians are going to tell you there's over 3.5 million blocks of stone. And then you can see cover-ups. They tell you they're tombs for pharaohs. And then you look and find out nearly all the pharaohs were buried in the Valley of the Kings. And of course, why are they telling us tombs for pharaohs? Because of course, they want to maintain the stories that's been imposed on us.
Edward Leedskalnin was a Latvian man who in the 1920s and 30s single-handedly built Coral Castle in Florida. The castle is made of many megalithic stones, each weighing several tons. The only tool that Leedskalnin spoke of using was a perpetual motion holder. The stones on average weigh more than the stones found in the Great Pyramid of Egypt. The largest stone weighs 30 tons, which is over 3 times the size of the heaviest stone found in the Great Pyramid of Giza. He was a very small man, weighing less than 8 stone. He refused to allow anyone to watch him while he worked, only working at night and sleeping by day. Very few people ever got to witness him working. Some that did reported that he caused the blocks, weighing many tons, to move like hydrogen balloons. Edward Leedskalnin is noted as saying that he discovered the secrets of the pyramids. Perhaps Leedskalnin discovered an anti-gravity technology which was known to the ancients, which has since been forgotten about due to the catastrophes which engulfed the Earth. The third piece of evidence of advanced civilizations is the Mayan calendar. The calendar was handed down to the Mayans from previous civilizations. It is clear from the calendar that whoever devised it had knowledge of the precession of the equinoxes and the position of the Earth in relation to both the Sun and the gravitational center of our galaxy. Whoever devised the Mayan calendar had advanced knowledge of astronomy and mathematics. The advanced civilizations of the past must have their origins somewhere. Many believe that the lost continent of Atlantis is where the advanced knowledge originated, which was destroyed in a cataclysmic event along with the evidence of its history. So where is the evidence of alien intervention, other than perhaps a few strange pictures found on ancient Egyptian stonework, which some say represent a helicopter, a submarine and a spaceship, or very strange characters in this wall painting found in Italy, which dates back to 10,000 BC. The controversial author Zecharia Sitchin believes he has the answer. Sitchin's theories, which are disputed by academics, are based on the translation and interpretation of stone tablets found in Sumeria, which is today known as Iraq. Sumeria is accepted as the place of one of the earliest civilizations, and from here various civilizations of the world originate. Sitchin is an expert in ancient languages and believes that the Sumerian clay tablets tell a story of how an advanced race of extraterrestrials arrived on Earth hundreds of thousands of years ago. Sitchin's theory goes like this. Facing extinction on their own home planet of Nibiru 450,000 years ago, the deposed ruler of a race known to mythology as the Anunnaki travelled to Earth, establishing a base on Earth known as Eridu. The Anunnaki arrived in droves and began mining Earth's gold, used to restore Nibiru's failing atmosphere. with the help of a slave race, the human race, genetically modified from apes about 300,000 years ago. About 100,000 years ago, the Anunnaki started interbreeding with humans, as related in the Bible, leading to schisms within the various Anunnaki dynasties, who between them founded all our ancient civilizations. Then, in 2024 BC, after much feuding, nuclear war breaks out between the Anunnaki, resulting in the annihilation of the great Sumerian civilization. And we've spoken about the Anunnaki. Could you tell us what you believe the Anunnaki are, and just give us a broad outline as to when they first came to the Earth?
Well, I've written quite a lot of information about the Anunnaki. I've studied it in great depths. The Anunnaki, Anunnaki, you've been shown this in many TV points and programs. The Anunnaki are the people who visited this planet. The first arrival on this planet were about 415,000 years ago. And they visited this planet and wanted the materials and minerals of it. So they came down and stayed on this planet for a considerable period of time. The remnants of their earlier civilizations, which were far more technologically advanced, coming from different planets, to travel to here, are still all over the planet. The only material that lasts a considerable period of time, of course, is stone. It's the only thing that vibrates to the vibrations of the Earth. And when you look around and see what's available, you can see that the destruction of everything else, material, metals, all disappear. Really, anything that lasts more than 20,000 years is basically only precious metals, jade, a few bones, pottery and stone. And to look at the gigantic stone monuments that are around today of a technology far in advance of ours opens your mind. We're not talking of theory. Go have a look at the base of Baalbek in the Lebanon. Now this city, according to certain reports, is dated by our scientists who who have got vested interests, who make it so they only are allowed to give out the information that the people who control them allow them. Many honourable scientists will tell you this quietly, but will not sit in front of a camera and tell you.
People like Sitchin's theory. I mean, have you got a view on his particular theory about the Anunnaki?
Well, I haven't read all his books. I have them, and I think he's a scholar. And I think basically, yes, I go along with the fact that they came here a long time ago. Certainly, I mean, I think he says something like, you say
400,000, possibly. I'm not sure.
I mean, there are others that I've spoken to. Certainly, maybe different races involved who say that about 14,000 years ago, there was a race of beings who had bases on Venus and Mars, and Mars began to lose its atmosphere, and they eventually made their way to Earth. So they colonized Earth at the time of very primitive humans, and they genetically upgraded us through hybridization, apparently.
Yeah. Do you ever consider historical evidence? I mean, for example, Sitchin's theories on the Anunnaki, and if you look at certain ancient temples, the advanced technology that they had possibly 10,000 years ago. Do you think that there's been
an intervention earlier?
Yeah, an intervention.
Well, put it this way: on the grand scheme of the history of the planet, we've been here for a blink of an eye, and there does seem to be one hell of a leap in the recent history of mankind to suddenly make us technologically intelligent. I find it amazing to think that they're saying that modern history, I think, says that mankind first turned up in some form about 3.5 million years ago, the earliest kind of, apes we've derived from those. 3.5 million years, and yet we have only developed what we would call modern technology, civilization, in really the last 5,000 years. So there's one hell of a gap there. And I found that puzzling, that there is suddenly this major spurt in mankind's intelligence. Yeah. People talk about the missing link, things like that. I don't know. I'm not that kind of person. But what I would say is, it seems to me perfectly plausible that if a planet develops say, 1,000 years ahead of mankind's timeline. That 1,000 years of extra technology that would have been developed may well have meant that they will have discovered undoubtedly new methods of propulsion that would mean the transport through the light years of time, a thing of the past. I'm sure this will happen. The Star Trek scenario of zipping away at warp speed to me is totally plausible.
If Sitchin's theories about the Anunnaki are indeed flawed, this does not rule out some kind of intervention. Researcher Lloyd Pye has put forward evidence from a different school of thought. Up until 1990, Lloyd Pye was not aware of Sitchin's theories, and for many years argued that fossil records of man's evolution from hominid to Homo sapien was inconsistent with Darwin's theory of gradual evolution. Hominids of 5 to 6 million years ago, from whom man is alleged to descend, could not have evolved into the Homo sapien of today, due to the massive differences which cannot be accounted for. The Darwinian theory of evolution is not disputed, but the sudden changes from hominid physiology to Homo sapien is far too quick to be explained by Darwinian evolution. He believes that the fossil records suggest that Homo sapiens suddenly appeared on the Earth around 200,000 years ago. He goes on to point out the massive differences between man and other primates, which he believes were artificially introduced using genetic engineering. The differences include bones, which are much thinner and lighter. Muscles are 5 to 10 times weaker. Skin is not well adapted to direct sunlight. We have 10 times as much body fat. Body hair is largely missing and the pattern is reversed. Head hair and nails must be trimmed. Skull and brains are vastly enlarged. Locomotion is completely different. Our throats have been completely redesigned to enable speech. There is no sign of an estrous cycle in females. There are over 4,000 genetic disorders, and chromosomes have been reduced from 48 to 46. It's very difficult to get biological anthropologists to talk about these theories. I've tried to get anthropologists to go on camera and dispute Lloyd Pye's theories, but so far to no avail. Another person who adds weight to the theory of genetic manipulation is Bob Lazar. In 1988 and 89, Lazar worked at S4, a top-secret US government facility in Nevada. He worked on a recovered flying saucer, which had been obtained from aliens, and his role in the project was to back-engineer the craft's propulsion system. During his time at S4, he periodically was taken into a room and given secret documents to read. One of these documents gave information on the alien manipulation of human genetics.
These beings said that man was the product of externally corrected evolution. They said that man, as a species, had been genetically altered 65 times. They refer to humans as containers, yet I don't know what we're containers of.
I think since the earliest times, some extraterrestrials have been living among us and either have established bases here or have just been living here, because from what we are told by people claiming contacts, people I have found very honest, people going way back who had contact experiences. I've spoken to people who had contacts with ETs in the 1920s and 1930s. And I'm talking about the more human types here, highly telepathic, more human beings, and they say that we are genetically linked and that there was hybridization, not just one race, but several races were involved and have been for millennia. And we are a hybridized species.
They may have come 100,000 years ago, looked around, gone away. They could have well come back 5,000 years and played some kind of interaction. Who knows? The thing is, we'll never really know. Short of you finding a buried UFO in the Arctic, the Thing type scenario, or finding something under the pyramids or the foot of the Sphinx, that type of things. All very fascinating. What I do believe is that our history is a manipulated history, because I'm intrigued by when people say that the paws of the Sphinx show water erosion that's 10,000 years old, and yet everybody's saying the Sphinx is only 5,000 years old. You know, I find that puzzling. And I think there's lots of things like that, historical anomalies, that are conveniently pushed to one side by mainstream science. I think it's the way it deals with the UFO subject. It doesn't fit the norm, so therefore we put it to one side, hope people forget about it. I think there's a massive media, that, you know, it all to do with the media. But going back to your question, yeah, I think it's perfectly plausible that a technology arrived here. It's just as plausible to me. I'm non-religious. I was christened C of E. I love the biblical stories, but for me it doesn't add up. I respect people who are religious, but for me it's perfectly plausible that if millions of people can accept God and religion and the world was made in 7 days, then I can see it just that 100,000 years ago there was some sort of, or 10,000 years ago, there was some kind of technological intervention to make us progress.
If aliens did visit the Earth thousands of years ago, modified our genetics and built the pyramids, then they would probably have visited other planets of our solar system. Some believe that the face on Mars and what can only be described as a 5-sided pyramid nearby provides evidence of this. There is also believed to be many structures hidden from our view on the far side of the Moon. As I explained in the last series, the Moon rotates around the Earth such that it is impossible to observe the far side. In 1965, when images were being returned for the first time by an unmanned space probe, Carl Wolf witnessed photographs of structures on the Moon.
About 30 minutes into the process, he said to me, in a very distressed way, by the way, we've discovered a base on the backside of the Moon. And then he proceeded to put photographs down in front of me, and clearly in these photographs were structures, mushroom-shaped buildings, spherical buildings, and towers.
If there are buildings on the Moon, then wouldn't our astronauts have seen them?
Regarding Apollo 11, we now know from Buzz Aldrin that during the flight out to the Moon, they were accompanied by a bell-shaped craft, and they all looked at it through a monocular through the cabin of Apollo 11. So that's been confirmed, and it was confirmed also by, I believe, Dr. David Baker, who was the Apollo 11 senior scientist on this program documentary, which was shown about 4 years ago, I think, Apollo 11, The Untold Story. Also, from a friend of mine, a former lady who worked in MI6, she met Neil Armstrong in Italy, and he confirmed to her, she'd overheard a conversation of him talking to a German doctor at a NASA conference, and then she confronted Armstrong with this information, and he admitted, yes, there were craft on the Moon when they landed, and they were very frightened by it, and they felt threatened.
Okay, and you think that's the big secret, basically, about the not the fact that they didn't land on the Moon, because some people believe that. I mean,
they did land on the Moon,
yeah.
Believe me. You can see some of the instruments on the Moon if you have a powerful enough telescope.
Yeah. Okay.
And you can even communicate with them.
Okay, yeah.
That's not to say that NASA doesn't doctor photographs
Yes.
taken on the Moon.
Watch this clip of the press conference which took place after the Apollo 11 astronauts returned from the Moon. Remember, these men had just accomplished the greatest achievement in human history and managed to get back alive. You would expect their manner to be at least slightly celebratory.
It's an adventure that took place not just in the month of July, but rather one that took place in the last decade. We all here and the people listening in today had the opportunity to share that adventure over its developing and unfolding in the past months and years. We will use a number of films and slides which most of you have already seen, and with the intent of pointing out some of the things that we observed on the spot, which may not be obvious to to those of you who are looking at them here from the surface of Earth.
As more and more people on this planet realize the extent and importance of the secrets our so-called democratic governments are hiding, pressure is slowly building towards a long-awaited paradigm shift.
I'm going to tell you that the year 2012 will come and go exactly as the year 2000 did, exactly as 6666 did, as exactly as the others. The next day will follow on the same. The only difference is by that time, the average mankind on the planet will have woke up the box of the lies from officialdom, was able to work things out, will be self-thinking, will be able to think outside the box, and will suddenly realise the illusion that we've all lived in, and will say enough's enough, no more. And people will not follow the lead of the governments.
There are 2 6-part richplanet.net DVDs available, which can be ordered from the richplanet.net website, along with Richard D. Hall's wildly original book, Aliens Before Gentlemen, A Guide to the Future.